Hello, everybody. This is Ed K. Smith, the co-host of The Asset Show, with my host and lovely man himself, Mr. Rob K. How are you, mate?
Good, mate. It's good to be back.
Yes, we've had a hiatus. We'll discuss why we've been away for the last few months or a bit more than that, but we'll talk about that. But today, we're very happy to be back with our first episode for a while with our special guest on the show, David Green, co-founder of tejo.com.au, to discuss his recent acquisition of electricity.com.au. Welcome, David. Thanks for coming on the show, mate. Our first on back.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
And Rob and I also just agreed that David wins the award for the best beard ever to appear on our podcast. What a piece of art it is.
Yeah, the whole thing doesn't even fit, which is probably
wow. It doesn't. It's so impressive, and there's so much work that goes into looking after that beard, I'm sure. So
I actually just got a haircut knowing I was coming on the show, and my barber cut me, which is a rare event. But I was like,
"Oh, really?
John, what are you doing? What are you doing to me?"
Actually, you're a little more hardcore now because you've got the big cut on your cheek.
That's how I actually close the electricity deal. Sometimes you got to you got to get stuff done, you know.
Knives were involved. It was a cutthroat deal. Boom, boom. Okay,
all right. That's not bad. That's a good pun. Yeah.
All right. So, obviously, you can tell David, Rob, and I like to have fun doing this show. If we weren't having fun, we wouldn't do it.
It's true.
And it's glad to know we've got someone on who also has a good sense of humor. But we're also serious, and when we see some serious shit go down, like a great domain being purchased for a company that is perfectly aligned with it, we got to talk to this person. And well done, Rob, for getting onto that one and inviting you on. So, Rob, I'm going to let you go first because we've got a few things we're going to recap on, some things that have happened over the last few months before we get into the story with David. And get a bit of David's history. So go for it, Rob.
Well, we've had I think our last show was like New Year's Eve.
New Year's Eve.
22.
Yeah,
so it's the first show back for 23, but sometimes it's good to have a rest. And I mean, you were reaching out to me, Ed, saying, when are we going to do the next show? And I was like, I'm not feeling it. It was because of the economic climate, you know, with everything that's going on and interest rates rising, and are we coming into a recession or are we in one, and all that sort of stuff. Plus, the domain name industry in Australia has been a bit weird for kind of like over a year. Being the fact there's only one drop catcher, and Outer haven't approved a new registrar since 2016, which means no new registrars are coming on board, and no one's developing new tech to become a competitor drop catcher. So I think people are a bit concerned about that. I've noticed running DBR with yourself, Ed, we've noticed that people are holding onto their money a little bit more. Not so many people are spending good money in upgrading their business brand, buying a better domain name. We're seeing it change now in the past kind of month, which is why we've decided to start doing domain name shows again. But yeah, it's been an interesting time. So that's why we've had a bit of a rest. I wouldn't mind, over the past couple of months, I've reached out to some domain investors, and we have got an update for the Australian domain name industry about some big sales that have been happening. I'll start from, these are all sales of .com.au that haven't been released until this moment over the past couple of months. So airway.com.au sold for $4,180 by Activate Ventures. Some three letters. I sold uxt.com.au myself for $3,960 recently. Mm-hmm. Activate Ventures has sold a couple in the past couple of months. TMA for $6,000 and dbg.com.au for $9,350. I bought and invested in a big three-letter biz.au and got the .au as well, which is probably going to look good on the scoreboard for 3-letter domain name sales. So I recently bought biz.com.au and biz.au for $66,000 a couple of months ago.
Nice number.
I think that's a pretty big 3-letter sale, and I'm planning on turning that into a big business hub to help small business start in the future. So I'll be working on that, building that. It's a pretty big 3-letter. I mean, I didn't want to pay that much, but the seller didn't really want to let it go for less than 100. So I think in this economic climate, we reached a fair price.
Yep.
There's a bigger 3-letter sale that Ed and I did just over a year ago that actually went for 6 figures, but we're respecting the buyer and the seller's confidentiality on that one.
That was a big sale, but of course, that's probably no one's ever going to really find out what that was.
We can't put that on the scoreboard, but
no.
Just so people know, I mean, I just mentioned a couple of 3-letters that have sold for between. Well, I sold UXT for nearly 4,000, and then Activate Ventures sold SDE for 12,000. I bought Biz for 66,000. It just goes to show 3 letters and short Australian domain names. You know, they're worth a lot of money.
They are. They're definitely worth a lot of money. So yeah, you've got to keep your eye on those if you've got any. Unfortunately, someone let a whole stack go last week. I don't know whether you saw that in the drops.
Yeah,
about 40 of them. Some really good ones too. So I don't know what the story behind that was. I had one sale recently, bitcom.com.au for 16,500. That was a decent one.
Yeah,
and
that's good.
Yeah, not Bitcoin.
No, not Bitcoin. That's 3 million.
That was 3 million.
Look in our previous shows, and you can watch the sale of bitcoin.com.au, how much that went for. Yes.
And did you mention those ones that you sold that went 3 letters? The top ones you've got on the list?
I sold this week. I sold Motus, MOTUS, for $10,000, and 2 months ago I sold Copilot for $13,000.
Yeah.
So
both .com.au's, right, Rob? Yeah, both .com.au. Yep.
Yeah, both .com.au's, and I gave them the .au for free.
Okay. Yep.
And
yeah,
I actually wanted a little bit more for those short one word.
Yeah, they're good names. They got a good deal.
In this climate, sometimes you've got to flip things, because we're buying and selling as entrepreneurs domain names for development. But sometimes if we're done with the domain name, we offload it.
This is it, and it's sometimes it's a bird in the hand, and cash is king at the moment. So if sometimes, and it helps you move into other things. It's like the step away from those has helped. That's some funding that goes into the biz.au. biz.com.au side of things too. So cool, awesome. So that's just stuff that we know. There's been a whole stack of activity in the space, including electricity.com.au, which we will get to very soon, which is going to be an interesting story. And thank you, David, for being patient while we do this catch up. He's obviously very patient to grow a beard like that. You have to be patient.
That's true.
You have to be patient, man. This is about as far as I get. 3 days unshaven, and then I go, it's too itchy. I can't handle it.
I tell people it's the easiest thing to do, because you actually don't do anything. You just have to not do anything for a really long time. So,
this is true, but you still require patience.
Yeah, it's true.
You have to go through that. Like, I don't know whether you went through the itchy face. I mean, I grew a beard for a month once. That was, I had a pretty decent beard back when I was about 40, I think. And that's it. Couldn't handle it. Had to shave it off.
That's what this show, I'm going to give this show a heading when we publish it, saying the latest update on domain name sales and beards.
And beards. That will get people.
Hey, David, how often do you look in the mirror in the morning, brushing your teeth, and think, maybe I'll shave it, but then don't?
Literally, I had this yesterday because I was thinking about it, and I thought maybe I'll ditch it, but I'm not gonna. It's one of those like I'm
It's
on
almost your
someone
brand.
else.
It's almost like your brand now, mate. It's sort of like I think people expect to see it when you're doing business. You'll turn up one day, oh no, sorry, can't do the deal. You shaved your beard off. So
mate, I know people that are considered pretty good friends now. They wouldn't know what I look like without a beard. So it's kind of like I just have to accept I am the beard. The beard's bigger than me. So
yeah. I reckon you could start doing some beard modeling, mate, for some of these big companies. I reckon you'd pull it off.
I agree.
Well, if anyone's watching, I am not too proud. I'll happily
endorsements.
Do a
Endorse David
100%.
Green.
Yeah, I'm in. Let's do it.
It's brilliant. What else we got, Rob?
I'll just mention some of the outbound premium domain names DBR is currently taking offers for, like a massive name. So it.com.au is for sale at the moment. If anyone's interested in making an offer, make sure you're doing well in this economic climate, and feel free to make an offer, because if you want to dominate the IT industry, I mean, it's crazy. We've got cybersecurity.com.au for the first time in many years.
A long time.
Available to purchase.
And what a hot topic. It's unfortunate that it's a hot topic, but it is in the news cycle every day. There's government departments and working groups been set up to deal with it, because it's just a huge issue. So for companies that want to really take advantage of it, or if you're a massive company, and I've had a chat to a few massive companies. I had to a chat to a very big one yesterday. It's a name that you could use defensively. It's a name you could build a complete brand on. It's a huge decades.
One. In 20 years, someone's going to be running cybersecurity.com.au. And we've also got list.com.au for sale at the moment, maybe for the real estate market, for people that want to list their homes, or for someone to build a brand and develop that out.
Yep. Snoring.com.au as well is another huge one. Something I get told off for a lot.
Literally, an entrepreneur could run a CPAP machine sale website on Snoring. You can do anything with it.
That's what the .com buys. The .com recently sold. It was purchased by CPAP.com, and they redirect Snoring through to CPAP.com. So
if anyone's running,
I'm speaking to them as well. I've been making contact with that area, and also we've got two big international names. Of course, we've got Who.com, which is a beast. So Who.com is an empty vessel for whatever you can really think of. And also we've got coin.org. .orgs are going off at the moment. So .org domains are really starting to get some great sales up. So coin.org, that's a beast as well. Anyway, what else is a beast is if you run a solar company and then and you're interested in electricity, and then you dominate by somehow reaching out and offering some money to buy electricity.com.au, which is exactly what Dave did recently. Yes, and thank you, Dave, for your patience for that catch up. So Dave, this is a big story. We want to get into that big story. Before we get into that big story, let's do a little brief background about who Dave is. Because you've got looking at your LinkedIn profile, you've got quite a varied background. You've been doing some interesting things. So we'll skip the part where you were born and went to high school. We'll just assume that happened. But are you from Australia? Were you born in Australia?
Yeah. Okay, I grew up on the sunny central coast of New South Wales.
Okay, central coast, New South Wales. So let's do, once you've left high school or university, where things really start getting interesting is the different jobs. And I'm looking back through some of the ones you've certainly had an involvement in the electrical supply, solar stuff before, but also you've done some interesting things like working at carloans.com.au and places like that. So give us a bit of a background of what you've been doing over the last sort of 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, of course. I think the first place I worked was obviously an electrical wholesaler, and that's where I probably first got my exposure to the electrical industry. And that was a great job, taught me a lot. But I think I don't want to toot his horn too much, but I think when I moved to Sydney, I met one person in particular that probably, I don't want to say it had the biggest impact, but had a very big impact on what I ended up doing. And that was one Sean McGowan.
Yeah, our friend Sean, he's a legend.
G'day, Sean.
Good egg, but
Sean runs money.com.au, lens.com.au, and obviously he used to run carloans.com.au.
Yep.
If you look back in these videos from our website, it might have even been on our old show.
It was on the Domainer show, not this one.
And
yeah.
there's a link in at the top of assets.com.au where you can watch the old Domainer shows where Sean McGowan's been on our show and talked about car loans. But go on, Dave.
Look, it's actually a funny story, and it's probably the only job I don't list on my LinkedIn, but I moved to Sydney, big bad world, wanted to try it in the big smoke. I was only 20, and at the time I had a very large moustache, and my brother thought it'd be funny. We were just talking about jobs I could do in the interim till I found out what I wanted to do. I became a postman. Applied one night after a few beers, got woken up to the phone call from Ozpost saying, hey, do you want to come in and be a postman? I was like, okay. 5 weeks into that role, I kind of realised maybe it's not for me. It's far too hard work. And then I'd obviously hit go on a bunch of Seek ads. And then this bloke calls me out of the blue, Sean McGowan, and tells me to come work for him and sell car finance, and I'll be a finance broker. And, it's a great job, and, they pay well, good commission, all that sort of stuff. And I was like, I don't know about that. It sounds a bit, a bit funny. I don't know anything about finance. How could I be a finance broker? Sean will tell a slightly different version of events, but I wasn't
sure he would.
Yeah, I wasn't going to do it. And then, because I was a bit like, this is all too good to be true. It sounds like BS, to be honest, because I was like, I can't be a finance broker. Like, I would love that, but I'm a postman right now. So, and then it got to a point where I was like, I'm not doing it. And then, fortunately, Sean obviously saw something there and had a red hot go and retucked me. I think it was up to Bill, who also ran it. He probably would have chopped me for not believing in it.
Yeah.
And then I went and started working with them. So this was before they were even called Beep. I think the first brand was we were called Easy Car Loans, which was just one of the names that we operated under. I say we, right, because I was so invested in it. And I think from the start, I didn't know anything about domaining. I always loved the internet, and I didn't really understand anything, to be honest, prior to meeting Sean. And then when I met Sean, he has a lot of energy and a lot of belief, and I think a lot of people probably, you guys get this a lot, especially in domaining. Everyone goes, oh, that's cool, can you teach me? And then you show them, and then they fade away, and not many people actually really believe and stick to it. So after a lot of bugging Sean, I still remember the first session ever he ran. He sat down, and the first session was explaining the standard that, carloans.com.au's Bondi waterfront, and Easy Car Loans is an empty block in Griffith. So that stuck with me. And then from there, I worked for Sean and Bill for a long time. They obviously sold. I hung on for a while. And then I was with Car Loans for nearly 9.5 years. And obviously what I learned in that period was I couldn't have paid for that. It was incredible. Yep. And then it sold again. And then on the second sale, that was my time. And along the way, I've bought and sold a bunch of domains as well. And my biggest one was professional indemnity insurance, which I actually developed. And then it's found a new home since. And then I kind of, to kind of fast forward, I ended up in energy because my brother was working in the space. He's always worked in energy, and he kept telling me about how solar's pretty much still a bit, not cowboyish, but still a bit wild. Yeah. And there was room for a good business to come in and kind of just do what you should do as a business and run well and treat your customers well.
Disrupt things, right?
Yeah.
That's what you meant to do. Come in and disrupt an industry, make it better and cheaper.
Yeah, and I think for us, it was like, it wasn't, the best analogy I had, and this kind of flows into why we bought electricity.com.au, is from a person I now call a friend who I've met through solar. He said solar businesses are like constant one-night stands. It's a bit of a crude example, but he said you basically get your customer excited, you woo them, you convince them that you're the best, you get what you want, and then you never want to talk to them again. And I think that really stuck with me.
Solar, that's it, right?
That's solar, right?
next.
Yeah, and lots of these companies, and I get it, they don't want to talk to customers ever again because they're like, if they're talking to them, it's probably because it's broken. And
True.
I looked at this, and my brother obviously was of the same mindset. We thought, why would you spend all that time and effort getting a customer? Like, we all know how hard it is to generate a lead, let alone then to sell to it, then to install something on their house. You've got all that trust. They trust you installing your house. Why let it go? So then we thought, how can we extend our business? So instead of just having, 1,000 one-night stands, we can have 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 long-term relationships. And that's where we thought, well, let's not just be, a solar company. Let's be a solar and battery company. And then
Oh, wow.
electricity.com.au means that, one day we'll become an electricity retailer, I think.
Yeah,
too.
wow. So solar might be how you get the customer on board, and then you might, I don't know, I'm trying to figure out your business model before you even explained it. But then maybe the ongoing stuff is at electricity.com.au.
100%. We've also got another domain, which I bought on the drops actually, but I like to keep that a bit of a secret, so that's out, vpp.com.au. And I bought that because there's another thing called a virtual power plant, and it's basically and you know what Australians are like, 3-letter domain for one, tick. Also, Australians love acronyms, tick. So I was like, this is the greatest name ever. And then this is where, like, cherry on top, VPP Pty Ltd was available. I was like, the heavens are shining down.
Yeah, that's great. Rob's had a few of those ones recently, haven't you, mate?
Yeah.
Believe it or not, same with electricity. Electricity Pty Ltd was not taken. So
Yeah, nice work.
Mate.
you can't make
Sign
it up.
So now, that's disrupting entrepreneurism right there. And it sounds like Sean McGowan from Car Loans had a big influence on you, because I think as young entrepreneurs, you need a mentor. Like, you can't just go outside, start delivering mail for Australia Post, and then go, I know what, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. You need like a mentor, and it sounds like that's what Sean was to you. It's really admirable. We've all had them.
Oh, yeah, that's an astounding pivot. I mean, talk about going from one extreme to another and not having the experience. It wasn't like you had the sales experience and the finance experience and then decided to do a postie job for a while. You didn't have any of that while you were doing the postie.
That being said, I can't walk out the front and say to my postie today, hey, I've got to roll in. You've got to have it in you. So you obviously had the entrepreneur in you, David.
Yeah.
Look, I think it's a classic. This is what I tell all the people that work with us now. It's all well and good to have, ideas and all that sort of stuff. And I always had a ton of energy. But what I think, and I don't want to give Sean too much credit here because I still speak to him a lot. So we've got to be, we've got to ease up. He's got enough things to pump up his ego. I think what he gave me was obviously a bit of focus, right? And then I realized, this is pretty cool. And then belief, right? Because if you just go and buy a domain, it's the same old story. If you spend 6 months on it, you'll fail because you'll go, oh, what have I achieved in 6 months? But when you actually find something of value and you focus on it and you have the belief that it's going to work, like, it's you can do whatever you want. So I think that's what I got from him more than anything. And also, I think if you want a mentor in the world of domains in Australia and New Zealand, I got pretty lucky.
Yeah, that's true. I know what you're saying.
It's amazing. It's one of the things I have on my LinkedIn profile is I have something at the top and it says, good domains are easy to remember. Great domains are unforgettable.
That's great.
So electricity comes under the second category, unforgettable. I mean, it's ubiquitous. Everyone knows the word.
It's authoritative. So if Electricity Proprietary Limited is saying to you, we can offer you this electricity solution at electricity.com.au, people won't blink.
They won't even think about it.
Won't even think about it.
I reflect back on Sean's interview that he did with you guys, and I obviously was on the coalface part and the pun back when Sean was running Car Loans, but when we were Beep, I had good friends who I still think thought I was a car dealer on Parramatta Road when that was so far from it because they didn't really get it. And then when we became carloans.com.au, people just clicked and they're like, oh, you do car loans? I was like, It's
what we call the category killer. It's the authority.
Yeah, exactly right.
Amazing.
And I explained in detail to some of these people, no, I sell car finance. but they just couldn't get their head around it. But then when you go to car loans, they don't even think. It's just instant recognition.
The power of a category killer or premium domain name to me, because I'm an ex-professional musician in my 20s, is if you can send out people with like an what do they call it, an A2 poster, one color with just the domain name on it and stick it on bridges, and everyone knows just from the domain name as they drive past the bridge that exactly what the company is. Because you can literally have a blue poster with carloans.com.au and stick it over every bridge in Sydney and Melbourne. Everyone knows what it is, where to go, how to get a car loan. That's the power of an amazing premium domain name.
Yeah. And I think the knock-on effect that I don't think gets talked about as much either is when you're trying to hire, especially in a city like Sydney, it's a tough labour market, right? Because there's 6 million people, but there's lots of great businesses. So I think these days it's not all money, but people want to work for an organisation where they've got some identity. And when you're down the pub and you're explaining to someone who you work for, and it's a bit hard, then I think people do struggle with that a little bit. But when you know, the minute you say who you work for, they go, wow, it has a lot of value. So I can't build Coca-Cola or Ford or whatever, but if you can buy electricity.com.au and down the pub they say, I work for electricity.com.au, it's a pretty powerful thing. So I think it's going to...
That's a great story, and that's talked about. And there's a lot of podcasts and some recent examples that come straight to my head of people that have talked about that exact thing. And it's often, as you said, an unthought of thing. The buyers of teamwork.com, that's a great podcast, and we'll maybe put a link to that. They talked about the whole process, and they paid like $780K for teamwork.com, and it was all their cash reserves, pretty much everything, cleaned them out to buy the name. But they said the transformation on many levels was amazing, and the staff belief and input and attracting people was one of them. And the other one that comes to my mind was carrot.com. They also tell the same sort of story, and so do many other people who have that experience. But it is a good note, because it's probably one of the reasons to have a category killer premium name that people don't think about. So thanks for bringing that up, David. That's awesome.
And do you know what? Maybe we can pry the price David paid for electricity.com.au to help the community understand the value of these things.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
I think. Funny story, extending on that too. I didn't tell our team what we paid for it, and they're not domainers, right? But when I said we bought electricity.com.au, I had a meeting because I was pretty excited. The excitement they had was humongous, and they had no idea, because they know, that's big. Because all of a sudden, we worked so hard on Tejo to build it what it is today, and it's great. But you can see them even go, this takes us from good to great overnight. And I think the deal that we did, I won't mention who the seller is, obviously, but it was rare. I got him on the phone, and I think we did a pretty fair deal. And I think it was a good opportunity for him to let go of a name that he's had for a while, and he probably saw we'd build some value into it. But we paid $35,000 plus the old GST. So
that's a fair price.
That's a very, very fair price, and here's the thing.
Economic climate, because Ed and I would think it's more worth 60 to 80 grand, but not now. In this economic climate, 30 to 50 is probably about fair.
Yeah, but the thing is, right, this is what I always find challenging with pricing of domain names. And we've talked about this, Rob, on the podcast, and it's not, we didn't come up with this ideaing, or it's like you picture a vacant block of land in Times Square in New York City. Okay, now someone can have a hot dog stand on that vacant block of land, or they can build a skyscraper. So you're going to build a skyscraper. I know you're going to, I can tell by talking to you, David, there's a skyscraper going on this vacant block of land. So, but that's the challenge, is how do you build in the value and the pricing when
the beauty that David's got is he saw beep.com.au,
yes,
and the carloans.com.au.
Yes.
But there's almost like a formula there that some people get it and some people don't. It's Well, there's so many examples of a brand coming out and then they upgrade their domain name for 30 grand, 100 grand, 200 grand. Imagine the people that are scared to do that never get the skyscraper. They don't get to scale because they're too scared to invest money in themselves and their brand at this point.
Yep.
The thing that still blows my mind, and I'm glad it's the case, but I look at it and I think, who's David Green and Jonathan Green, right? Which is two guys having a red hot go. AGL, what are they currently worth? $6 billion. Origin Energy, $1 gajillion about to be bought by a Canadian private equity firm. How do they not own electricity.com.au? And I do. And every day I wake up since we bought it and I'm like, I own it and you don't. So
and that's awesome. And you know why that happens? It's because they've gotten too big.
Yeah, exactly.
There's too many cooks in the kitchen. They've got these massive boardrooms, and then entrepreneurs come along and they disrupt at this level because they don't have to ask 10 people, is it okay if I spend tens of thousands of dollars on this brand that's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars?
Yeah.
You think AGL, they should spend $1 million buying a domain that protects them, but they...
No, Rob and I, if we had $1 for every conversation we've had with CEOs, board members, as they either get it or they don't get it.
$10,000 budget for $100,000 domain name, and we have to just go, okay, someone's going to come along and disrupt. It's basic brand protection. Anyway, that's why I love entrepreneurs and disruptors, because there is an angle. There's angles in every industry where you can get the dream name, go and do something and make some money to be able to buy the name that you can build and turn into a multi-million-dollar business.
Thinking about that who.com that you had, instantly I already thought of a brand campaign. It's perfect. Who'd you get that from? Who? And you've got the constant recognition. It could be anything.
It could be anything.
You buy that overnight.
Who could be the new Twitter? Who could be the new search engine that takes on Google? I mean, if you're going to change the name of Twitter to X, someone could come up with who.com as the new Twitter.
Oh, don't get me started on that one.
That's a whole nother kettle
because this is a topical thing, right? And I'm torn between this because I like Elon Musk. He annoys me sometimes, but I love him because he's like, who else? Look, all the things he's done. No matter what anyone says, the guy's are freaking amazing with all the world-changing stuff he's done. No argument. But I struggle with the destruction of a near on 15-year-old brand. Man, I love X. Like I think
it's become a verb, right? It's like Twitter me. Like, and he's just going to go, I know, chuck that in the bin, delete that.
Yeah, it's sort of like, but there's only one person I believe in the world that could ever pull off that extreme of a dumping of a brand, and it would be Elon Musk. But I'm still reserved. I don't know. Was it a good thing or a bad thing? I don't know. I'm torn because I want it to work just because part of me does, and then the rest of me is going, that was bad. That was so bad.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there, eh? Today, one of the biggest stories going around the world is Elon Musk changing twitter.com to x.com. Domain names are still that important, even to billion-dollar companies.
Yep, absolutely. I think it's great. I think it's getting people talking about domain names. So good, bad, or indifferent to whether you think it was the right thing to do or not. I think it's brilliant because it's bringing exposure to electricity.com.au and to assets.com.au and to dbr.com.au and to audiobooks.com.au. I've got a plug on my own.
Yeah, you are. And you watch what happens to biz.com.au in a couple of years. And you watch what's going on at electricity.com.au in a couple of years. You buy a good brand and name and you build it.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially, and I don't know about AI, so I don't want to go down that road. But in this era where there's so much content being prolifically pumped out, how are you going to cut through? How are you going to break through search? How are you going to break through brand? And it just comes back to just have a world-class domain name, because it doesn't matter what you're scrolling through, you're going to see it. Even if it's not conscious, you're gonna recognize it, and you're probably going to put in your details and buy some taller. So,
mate, you're onto it.
And if you can water it down to the pub test over a beer, like you said, David, before, electricity.com.au, full stop, don't need to say anything else.
So David, are you able to share some plans of what you think of doing with electricity? Because you mentioned is going to take over and replace Tahoe.
Yeah, no,
Going?
I can run over that. Yeah, 100%. So I think for us, the way that energy's going is it's obviously in a massive transition. Like you'd be crazy if you haven't read something on the news about, the energy
Yeah.
crisis. And the big thing is you need to generate, right? And as we make a switch to renewables, our cost of power is going to go up before it comes down. So part of what we do is Tejo is where, as a customer, we call it take the power back because it gives you the ability to do your own thing. And also, you can kind of declare your independence because right now, if you don't have solar or a battery, you're 100% reliant on the grid. Now, when you get solar, you're your own little mini power plant. So literally, you're creating your own energy. So we use Tejo as the kind of spear to create that relationship with the customer where they can go, holy moly, how cool is this? We sell a lot of batteries too, which is where the virtual power plant element comes in, because then as people go through their journey of renewable energy, you start with solar. Then when you kind of get it, because it's a foreign concept to a lot of people, you go, I get it, it works, the more I use, the more I save, then you get a battery. So then you can also monetize and maximize your savings by using your battery power at night, because obviously the sun only shines when it shines.
Yeah.
And then the two cool layers that are created off the back of that is then you're your own virtual power plant. So there's a thing called a virtual power plant, which is definitely in its infancy, and lots of companies are trying, but no one's really nailed it yet. And it's where you join a network of batteries that are consolidated digitally. And then when the grid's under stress, all those batteries can discharge to support the grid, because normally that'd be supported by fast response stuff like gas. And then if you've got too much power during the day, this price can go negative. You can download free power. And then the beautiful part is it gives you all the grid stability, because obviously renewables only pumps when it pumps. And it means the customer can have even more control and more autonomy over what they do. So then the plan is, Tejo obviously originates the customer, and we have this great experience. They get solar and battery, they're great. Then VPP is going to help them monetize the asset by trading energy for them. And then electricity.com.au, the dream. And day one, we'll probably do some other smaller stuff with it, but the dream is to become a full energy retailer, leveraging off our incredible customer base, which is full of batteries and solar. So it's like having our own generation assets without actually having a power plant or a solar farm.
Amazing.
That's the I'm not scared to say it, because that's what we're trying to do. So that's the long-term plan.
That's great.
It's great.
And tokenization of these assets is the other huge thing that's happening with blockchain and electricity. Someone that's actually been on our podcast before, Decom. Don't know whether you've heard of Decom. Do you know Decom, David?
Yeah, look, to be honest, not well, but obviously before you come on a show, what do? You stalk. So I did look at lots of
okay. Well, it's probably worth looking at, because they've just done a whole thing with a solar farm in WA with tokenization and stuff. So might be worth making some connections there.
100%.
But they are doing amazing stuff, and that's all to do with within that sort of idea range. And it's like, we are so messed up at the moment in our country. And the thing that shits me, and it's like, we are in one of the sunniest places on the freaking planet. I mean, I just read something this morning in
Queensland
the
and
Fin
Western
Review.
Australia, 9 months of the year, there's no clouds.
There's just been these two Aussie guys, I can't remember their name, but they're in the Fin Review today. So if you want to look at the article, who've just set up this bloody great big solar panel deal in Britain, right? Where there's bugger all sun. It's something like, I don't know, it was a $50 million thing. I can't remember the details, but that was in Britain. And the guy said, if you told me this at a conversation in a pub 7 years ago, that I'd be doing this in the United Kingdom, I would have laughed at you. But here we are, where we've got more sun than we know what to do with. Why can't we get our shit together in this space, David? What's the story?
Well, I think that's David's
politics,
plan, right?
That's right. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
What's been the problem?
I don't want to go too political, but I think no one's really had the courage. With renewable energy, I think everyone's wanted to do it, but like many things, there has to be more of a financial reward, or critical mass has to swing towards it. And I think finally critical mass has swung, so now all the governments are going, we need to jump on board, so things are finally happening. And it's because I think before they thought, will we win a vote with this? Probably not. Now they're thinking, yes, we will. So I think at the highest level, I think that's kind of the harsh reality.
Yep.
And
no, that's true.
I think And it's the whole putting your money where your mouth is. Our grid was never designed for this much renewable. So during the day, the grid gets flooded with energy, and then at night it struggles. So I think part of, obviously this distributed asset model, which is home batteries, community batteries, which we hear a lot about, all that sort of stuff is going to really help. Snowy Hydro 2.0, it's going to be the largest battery in the Southern Hemisphere. All that stuff is super cool, but it just takes time. And we're nearly, I won't say lucky, but the cost of power in England, we're talking like the equivalent is like $1 a kilowatt. We're going to crack the 40 cents. So they're even more exposed, and it's freezing. So even though their generation's so low compared to ours, it still makes sense because they just spend so much on energy, and that's where we're going. Everyone in July gets their new rates, and everyone's rates went up. And even the people that are gen tailors, so they're your big guys that have generation assets and retail companies, even they're smashing people with rate rises. So I think people are realizing, if I haven't already got solar, I really need it. And then batteries are going to grow exponentially. And also, thanks to Elon Musk, obviously we sell heaps of his power walls, and it's also a great product. And I think people are really starting to see how powerful it is to have your own, rooftop solar and your own battery, because they're, classic. Lots of the policies here are really driving mums and dads to make the change. And I think a lot of them work. So like STCs, Julia Gillard brought that in. It's actually worked exceptionally well. Have we done anything that meaningful since? Probably not. So it's just up to us to just keep going, I think. And we'll see more big scale stuff happen, but I think we've just got to keep selling solar and battery, and that's all we can do. And if you're at home thinking what I can do, just get solar. There's nothing better. It's crazy. Like Rob said before, it's always sunny in Australia. Best country.
It's just great. It's just it doesn't make sense to me why we haven't progressed further. But politics, that's pretty much it.
There's lots of other moving parts, but
I'm still laughing.
Dominating like David. Here we go. That's what it takes.
Yeah, and
I'm still laughing. Sorry, mate. Go ahead.
There's a few retailers, like every year you'll see a few retailers go under, which is a bit sad in the Australian energy market, because if you don't generate, you're exposed to the cost of power. And then obviously there's some events you can't plan that are, impacted. But I think if we can nail the battery piece, you can kind of hedge your risk and then run a really great retailer. So that's the plan. Because these poor guys that try and start, and a lot of them run good businesses, but if your hedge is blown, you go broke. So I think if we get enough battery assets, I think it could be quite a powerful,
I think you're at the beginning of all this stuff, David. In the next couple of years, you'll be well set up for. Imagine in 5 or 10 years when more people have got electric cars, and then they realise I have to have solar and batteries. And I think you've got a big future with this electricity brand. That's for sure. Yeah. And it's a genius move to spend the money on the domain name. People are scared.
We haven't even touched on EVs. That's right, which is a whole nother outrageous.
That's a whole.
It's nuts.
And that still comes under electricity.com. Electricity for cars, electricity for homes, electricity for parking lots to plug your car in.
Yeah,
commercial electricity. Network. You've sewn it all up.
Yep.
That is actually a good one though. The no FBT, if you're an employee on an novated lease for an EV though. So on a slight side note, that's a cracker. So if anyone's thinking about getting an EV and they're an employee, go get a novated lease. It's wild. 2027 it runs out. That's a good program. But
that's cool.
It's pretty cool. You save a bomb. But that's from a tax perspective. But I think the funny part with EVs is it's just putting more stress on the grid, so more people get solar.
Exactly. Yeah. I own electricvans.com.au, which is an area I'm excited about because that's a huge growth space. Because most vans and like delivery vans are used in a sort of metropolitan area, so they're just running around doing a couple 100 Ks a day. But they've got to have somewhere to charge these bloody things up. They can't go back to base all the time. So that's where back to Elon was a genius, because he built the infrastructure with Tesla. That's where people like Ford now, they're in the position where they're sort of having to deal with the power network of Tesla in the US in particular.
Yeah.
Because no one else, it was great building the cars, but he thought, so he's a genius in that regard as well.
In many regards, except maybe not with X.com. It remains to be everything app. It remains to be seen. Maybe he's pretty smart.
Who knows? Who knows? But look, I'm still laughing, and I can't just get over the fact that you were able to come in under the radar, scoop up electricity.com.au. We're going to look back on this conversation in 2 to 5 years. Like many of the other people we talk to, when they pay out a chunk of money, that may have been a chunk of money you could have used elsewhere at the time, look back and go, it was the best thing we ever did for all the reasons we've discussed. But it still comes down to, you have to do something with it. So buying the great domain and then not doing anything with it at all and just leaving it parked, it is just it is a powerful asset not being utilized.
Absolutely.
A bit like solar not going anywhere or into batteries or something like it should. So
Yeah.
all right, anything else you want to touch on, David, before I think we got some more stuff to talk about before we finish up, Rob?
I think, David, who did you use to do the actual transaction to make sure everything went smooth for the domain?
I think he's quite a known man in the domain space, but Aaron.
Aaron Karabartic from coopermills.com.
Cooper Mills, he's the man. I'll be honest, I haven't actually used him before, but I think he's probably, he's bigger than domain sometimes, because he is the man, and it was the easiest thing in the world with him, so it was great. So, and
at least it adds that legal trust element to it as well, where your money's not going to disappear down a black hole.
100%.
Of course, Ed and I do that as domain brokers as well, but if it's anything that requires, legal intervention, we're not lawyers, Ed and I, we're domain brokers. So we even use Aaron Karabartic from Cooper Mills whenever there's anything that needs a bunch of paperwork and all that sort of legal stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, I think anyone that hasn't bought a domain, they need to speak to you two, and then obviously from a legal perspective, speak to Aaron, because it's so exciting. You don't really want to cock it up, to be blunt. So no. I think that's like, even though I've bought and sold heaps of domains, but I'm not going to trust myself, because it's not worth it.
That's so true, mate. I'm dealing with a couple at the moment where unfortunately things have been done around the wrong way. And instead of dealing with us first, they sort of tried to get it themselves. And if you expose who you are and what your company is and what your company name is to the people, it only takes someone with not much intelligence to put the two together. And then they go, okay, that's a price increase. It's so you really need some anonymity when you're doing domain acquisitions.
Even to our own horn, it's a good idea to come and spend a couple of $100 with Ed and I just to give you a plan of attack. Every domain name acquisition is unique, and we can form a plan of attack so you don't cock it all up.
That's one word for it.
All right. David, awesome having you on, mate. Thanks for taking the time.
Congratulations.
Thanks again. Thanks for having me. I love talking domains, so I appreciate it.
Awesome. All righty. Well, thanks, Rob. Thanks, David. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in to our first episode back of the Asset Show. It's been great. We're very excited to be back and getting into it again. And we'll have more amazing people on the show like David. And watch out for electricity.com.au. Zapping to a home near you very soon. So, all righty. Take care, everyone. Have a great day. Cheers.